Blog Talk Radio.
We're back.
All right, Michael.
All right,
Michael.
Yes.
Let me step in here, ladies and gentlemen.
You step in there.
This was my fault. I clicked on something, just doing scheduling these shows. Sometimes I'm doing them at weird hours. We do apologize. IHWE Radio is May 21st. Michael McCurdy is standing by in sunny California as your host. As the director of the show, I made a mistake. I do apologize. But let's start off from the beginning. Dan Bynum is standing by. He will be calling in here at any moment. Dan had a number of years working for Jim Crockett Promotions and World Championship Wrestling on the television production side. Jim Cornette was scheduled to be our guest tonight, but he is undergoing severe weather in Louisville, Kentucky. His electricity has gone out. Jim called me just moments before we went on the air and stated that, the stuff's going down in Louisville, and he is taking shelter with his wife. So we want to send our best wishes to Jim and Stacy in Louisville and everybody else, and say, hey, I hope everything goes all right. I hope this weather clears up. Everybody's safe. No real bad damage. Electricity gets turned back on. Jim wanted me to apologize to you listeners. We will get Jim back on here, and we are shooting to do it next week, along with our countdown to the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion in Las Vegas that will be happening the week after. I'm a little perplexed and a little bit kind of disorganized at the moment, but we are here live. Thankfully, we're ready to go. So we're waiting on Dan Bynum to call in. So, Michael, I do apologize. Thank you for bearing with me. And, so we're going to do this. That's what we do. We're waiting on Dan to call us, and as soon as Dan calls in, we'll get him here on the air. So,
Woo! Well, as we've always said, man, it's live radio, and I think pretty much every week people tune in to see what's going to happen to us next. I mean, we've kind of had a little bit of everything. This is a new one, but, we always come back. We have entertaining shows, and I think that's our main goal. We promote positive goodwill in wrestling, and we entertain everybody for 2 hours every Wednesday night. So, I think we're doing okay. Technical difficulties happen.
Okay. So, anyway, we're waiting on Dan. We will run with you. So, anyway, how you doing, Michael?
I'm doing good, man. Like I said, the cold's gone a little bit, here and there, but, the voice is back. I mean, I apologize to everybody last week. I wasn't quite up to par as I like to be, and I sounded like hell. So, I think our running joke was kind of I asked 3 questions and sneezed 6 times last week. So, I was a little bit under the weather, but I'm back, good to go. And, we got some beautiful weather here in Humboldt County, so like 70 degrees, blue sky, sunshine, it's pretty nice. I'm glad I'm not in Louisville, Kentucky. I don't like tornadoes or thunderstorms or whatever the hell else you guys have going on over there.
Yeah. Well, I'm not in Louisville, but it's down here in the South, and Texas weather is so bad that Vince McMahon created a character and marketed a character based off tornadoes here in Texas, and that was the Texas tornado, and of course it was Kerry Von Erich. So that's how bad the weather down here in Texas is tornadoes have their own season. So, but I'm going to we're waiting on Dan to call in. We're waiting on Dan to call in.
Bad weather should never have a season.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we will get Jim Cornette back on here.
Definitely.
We will. So, Dan, is that you?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the line with us is a man who's worked in television for years. He had a run with Jim Crockett Promotions, and that transitioned over to World Championship Wrestling. He worked alongside Craig Leathers, Keith Mitchell, Tony Schiavone, many others. I believe now he is working. If I'm incorrect, Dan, correct me. I believe now you're involved with Ring of Honor.
I'm the senior director for Ring of Honor right now, and it's fabulous to be back in the business with those guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Bynum, thank you for joining us, Dan, and thank you for coming on early. Jim's unfortunately going through some bad weather in Louisville, so I appreciate you calling in early.
I'm happy to pick up the slack for Jim Cornette. Usually it's the other way around, so it's fun to be reciprocal.
All right. Well, Michael, is there anything you wanted to ask Dan? I kind of gave you a rundown of who he was. Like I said, I guess I'll start, Dan, and then Michael will kind of jump in. So when you got started, your Jim Crockett Promotions stuff started in what, 1989? How did you get started with Jim Crockett Promotions?
Well, I went to Atlanta when Ted Turner bought WCW, and he was putting together his production company there, and he had the wisdom to start by hiring Keith Mitchell. And then Keith, I was lucky to have worked with Keith all those years at World Class Championship Wrestling, and he brought me in to Atlanta from Dallas at that point. And I came in at the end of 1989, just as the TBS era of World Championship Wrestling was beginning. And that was quite an exciting time. Obviously, it was the era of the head-to-head competition with the WWE, and it was thrilling to be a part of all of that. But really, I got involved in the business initially and learned to love it by working with Fritz Von Erich in Dallas.
Oh, so you worked for World Class Championship Wrestling?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay.
That's how I got into wrestling.
Cool.
I was actually working at Channel 39 back in the 80s, and Channel 39 at the time was owned by Pat Robertson and the Christian Broadcast Network. They had received the channel as a donation from the Doubleday company, and the part of the station was they had a fantastic television truck for remote production. So consequently, that local station, we had a production company with a television truck, and we subcontracted out to ESPN and regional sports networks to produce live sports events. So we were producing Southwest Conference sports at that time. We do football, basketball, baseball, swimming, track, all of those things. So we were out every week doing some sport, and there was a fantastic group of very creative people that was at Channel 39 while we were doing the live sports production on the truck. Fantastic director Gil Gillum that I learned a lot from, and there was a couple of incredible handheld cameramen, Vic Souza and Oz Coleman, and eventually there was an executive producer named Mickey Grant who came to the station.
I know Mickey.
At the same time, Keith Mitchell was there. And actually, at Channel 39, interestingly enough, my relationship with Keith goes back to the very beginning, because the first broadcast television job I had at Channel 39, they were subcontracting with ESPN out at the Mesquite Rodeo to shoot rodeo for ESPN. So I was Keith's camera assistant behind the bucking shoots out at the Mesquite Rodeo. So my first television job was literally hauling Keith's camera cable through manure. So I had nothing but up to go from there. So I worked my way through the production crew there. I became a technical director, and eventually I was a director. And my timing was impeccable, because when I started to direct, Mickey had gotten with his buddy Bill Mercer, who he had worked with at KBIL Radio, and they had hatched an idea to come up with a second television show for Fritz von Erich. At the time, Fritz was doing the big-time wrestling show that they shot on Monday nights at the Will Rogers Auditorium there in Fort Worth, and then the show would show on Saturday on Channel 11, you know.
Right.
But Fritz wanted a second show that he could syndicate. Channel 11 was kind of a regional superstation at the time, but he wanted a show that he could syndicate out to local stations, so he had Bill and Mickey had pitched him on the idea previously, but when the time became right, he came to us at Channel 39, and we began that show, I believe, in 1980. I should have checked my dates, or maybe 81. But the thing about it was, and it was just divine timing for us at Channel 39, as well as Fritz, and as well as the wrestling industry, because up to that point, professional wrestling television was pretty much a two-camera deal. You know, you had your wide shot, and usually that was even locked off. Most of the time, they didn't even have a cameraman on the wide shot. And then there was a second hard camera that would be next to the wide shot, and it would zoom in and get the tight shots, you know, and that was pretty much the way it was. But at Channel 39, we've been doing these sports. We've been doing college sports for all these years, and once it came to wrestling, we just did it the way we did all the other sports, you know. And I'm pretty sure that was an idea that Bill and Mickey had, and then they enlisted the help of Keith Mitchell and to produce the thing. And so we took our expertise at doing real sports and took the handheld cameras and the extra microphones, and because we were really good at miking the whatever the sports field was, so we could get the impact sounds of the football or the swish of the basketball going through the net. So we were always into the audio. So we mic'd up the ring. We had mics on the cameras, and we started covering wrestling like a real sport. And that was the first television show to do that, really.
Right.
And it revolutionized the sport the way people saw the sport, I think, because the way we shot it, we had cameras right next to the ring. You could see the sweat flying off of people onto the cameras, and you could hear it, and it just added a lot to the intensity of the sport. You know, you could feel it, and of course, being at the mecca of professional wrestling in the Sportatorium was another incredible thing, because that venue had been there forever. It had incredible fans there. This was back in the era of the total kayfabe, and the first 15 rows of fans were true believers. And when I got into the Sportatorium and started understanding the culture of everything, I really fell in love with wrestling as a folk art, is the way I look. I'll have to admit, when I was a little kid, that I was more into roller derby than wrestling as a little kid. But when I was exposed to it and got to work with Fritz, and especially Gary Hart was one of my very favorite guys. He was booking through there, and he was just such a special guy. And then working with the Von Erichs, it was a golden age for the sport. And really, as I look at it, I didn't know it now, but Texas wrestling has always been shoot style, hard, extreme stuff. I just thought that's the way it was. But man, Texas wrestling was a great style of wrestling for that show to expose. And ultimately, what happened with the syndication, it was wildly successful. it was ultimately syndicated in over 25 countries. We were in 100 stations across the country. We were actually pulling better ratings in New York City than the WWE show was pulling. So
Well,
it was a fantastic time.
You make a good point, Dan, and I know, Michael, you want to ask something, but, I Dan was working here. I grew up in this territory. I grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth, and when I got old enough to understand, Championship Sports came on every Saturday night. They came on Channel 11. It would go head-to-head with Saturday Night Live. It would, I believe, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe World Class Championship Wrestling would come on before Hee Haw on Channel 11. Hee Haw was a big deal. As ridiculous as that sounds today, a show called Hee Haw, but that was a big deal back in the 80s. And, yes, World Class Championship Wrestling.
Championship Wrestling on Channel 11 was up against Saturday Night Live in Dallas, and Championship Wrestling would get twice the ratings that Saturday Night Live would. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, think about that, fans. If you don't know how big it was, and it lasted for years. I mean, even I was watching it in the mid to late 80s, and then the Channel 39 show came. Wrestling was very big here, and yes, World Class Championship Wrestling. I've had conversations with Bill Mercer. He came and did a show for me a few years ago. Skandar Akbar, God bless his soul. And they just revolutionized. You guys, Keith, Mickey, you guys revolutionized the business as far as the visual presentation. And you did stuff that you brought it into the living room. The first wrestling I was exposed to was World Class Championship Wrestling. So for that's absolutely amazing. Michael, I know you wanted to say something about syndicated television, correct?
Well, yeah, he was talking about the show, and it actually was 1981 is when the syndicated programming started. But another significant point to make on that is the federation was known, the territory was known, it was Big Time Wrestling. And that's, Fritz had Ed McLemore back in the 60s, went on. And in 82, Fritz changed the name of the territory to World Class Championship Wrestling, which actually was the name of the syndicated show. For some people, so there is a little history behind it on that ways, is that it's actually named the territory World Class Championship Wrestling, which is what their syndicated program was, which at the time, like Dan was saying, in New York it was beating WWE. In Texas it was huge. I mean, the numbers they were pulling were major numbers. I mean, these are numbers that, national markets weren't able to pull. The effect that TV show had, just not only on, the exposure, but on television production. World Class Championship Wrestling, the syndicated program, in a way, was a pioneer for a lot of stuff that we saw later on, and some stuff you see now. A lot of the stuff we see now through Ring of Honor or sometimes WWE, that was stuff that they were starting to work with the syndicated program back in 1981. So it was
absolutely
a part of
sport. Without a doubt, and it revolutionized the way of the business. It was kind of the end of the structure of the business, because once we went worldwide with the syndication, then Vince got the idea too, and then it was on.
Right. Well, I always tell
another
people,
point. Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. I'll say this, and I'll let you get to your point, Michael. I always tell people, Dan, the three biggest things in Dallas for so many years were world class. Well, the Von Erich, and that was world class. J.R. Ewing and the Dallas Cowboys.
That's right, and it was a tough decision to know who was the biggest there.
Exactly, and not a whole lot of people understand it unless they were here. You can sit there.
We used to sell out Reunion Arena on Thanksgiving and Christmas every year. 20,000 people in there, man.
Well, the proof is in the pudding. Texas Stadium, 1984, Parade of Champions, 40,000 fans that was the largest attendance in North America, and it stood for a few years.
Right, until WrestleMania started.
Right, until WrestleMania. But, I mean, there was Comiskey Park. I mean, there had been years of stadium shows before that, the Rose Bowl, but World Class set the attendance. And, I mean, the market, I mean, now the world is just, its population has grown, you know, a ridiculous amount of time since then. But just think about 1984, there was 40,000 wrestling fans, you know, to come see, not a promotion that was home base. They just happened to have two very strong televisions, and it just blows me away. So how long did you work? Okay, so you were with 39. Now after 39, did you go work exclusively for World Class, or what happened?
Well, actually, that day in 1984 was one of the biggest in my life, because I directed that show for TV, and then I got in a limousine with the Fabulous Freebirds, and we drove across town to a big rock club, and we debuted our new production, the first wrestling and rock music video, Bad Street USA, and we were the hottest thing in town right then. So that was an incredible night. And actually, I went from there. I was hired by a company called what the hell was the company called? It was a Telemusic. It was a music video production company, and we produced videos for Devo and some other people after that. So after that 84 show, I went on and did music videos and commercials for a while. And then in 1989, I had gotten back into local television and was doing promotion production for Channel 39. But in 1989, I got the call to go to Atlanta, and for 6 years I was there doing those shows, which was also an incredible experience, as you can well imagine.
Michael, I know you, before we get to WCW in Atlanta, Michael, you wanted to talk about how big World Class, the syndicated show, was. It was even pirated out in Israel. You wanted to bring that up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays you see WWE, they do shows from, London, like, Raw was just from London. But back in the 80s, and I don't know how much of this, Dan was part of, but their show aired, the syndicated show aired in Israel. That's how the boys got so popular over there. They actually did a tour over in Israel, and it was based off the syndicated program. So, I mean, Once again, there's World Class doing things then that weren't being done. I mean, now it's common to go around the world, but their show made it to Israel, and they did a tour. Now, Dan,
absolutely. We were also shown in Beirut, which was Lebanon was a place of big conflict at the time. But the legend was that in the hour that our show was on in Lebanon, everybody stopped fighting and watched wrestling. So
that's awesome.
It's amazing the impact of that show. It got to Israel because of Christian Broadcast Network, and God bless Pat Robertson for at least facilitating that. But, it was a worldwide phenomenon. And without a doubt, the WCCW show was the first modern wrestling show. Yet, as far as I'm concerned, it began the modern era of wrestling that stretched on through to now, really. But, we've had ups and downs and stuff. But World Class Championship Wrestling was revolutionary in the way that it covered wrestling, the way that it respected it as a sport and treated it as a sport. Another of the real innovations that Mickey and Keith put together for that show, and I was a big part of, was all of the feature work that we did. We were the first ones to start doing shooting stuff away from the venue and making music videos. I did Bang Your Head for the Missing Link because that was his gimmick. So we used Bang Your Head, that tune, and we did the valet shoot where Garvin had to go to David's ranch, and he and Sunshine were valets for the day, and all of that stuff was not really being done because people didn't have the production capability, and they also didn't have the budget for it. So that. The feature material, I think, was able to build the characters so powerfully. The feature that we did with Kimala and the jungles of Uganda, which was actually out at the river there in Dallas, but that was a powerful piece, and it got the Kimala over immediately, and he was fantastic. But I believe that the feature material helped him get over as well. So all of those things were very important for the success of World Class Championship Wrestling. But that show, I think, was very significant in the industry, and I believe it's cited in books and stuff as being the beginning of modern wrestling.
Okay, well, Dan, I'm going to jump in here for a second.
Sure.
If you listen to the intros or whatever, I'm working on a book. I'm working on the Encyclopedia WCCW, and it's an encyclopedia look at from 82 to 89 of all the talent and people that worked in that territory. And I'm going to have to say, I'm going to admit it right now, I didn't realize that you were part of that team at that time. So this is something new
for
me.
I mean, if you look at the movie, it's like it was all Mickey Grant, but there were people that were where the rubber met the road, and really I think it was Keith and I that had more to do with anything. Mickey is a brilliant guy. He had the first idea. He's still doing documentary filmmaking now, and but Keith was the guy that figured out how to actually do the television production, and he was the guy that made everything work, and he was the guy that I learned almost everything from. So Keith Mitchell should get a huge amount of the kudos for how that show progressed. But yeah, I mean, I was directing it, so I had a little bit to do with it, and I was supervising the post-production of all of the features and everything. Yeah. So yeah, I expect to talk to you and see Keith and I well represented in the encyclopedia.
Definitely now. In fact, I'd like to get in touch with you after the show sometime so we can talk a little bit more about this. I can get some more information because, I mean, this right here is a gold mine, in my opinion, because not only you mentioned the Parade of Champions, but the time frame you were there, maybe you can kind of shed a light on this. You would have been involved with the TV production for what started kind of the greatest feud in wrestling history, which is the Von Erichs and the Freebirds. That was in Christmas night of '82 with the
Hey man, I was directing that show when all that went down, when Santa Claus attacked Fritz, when the gate got slammed on Kevin's head, or whose head was that?
Kerry.
One of the
Kerry. It was Kerry.
Kerry's head. Yes, it was Kerry's.
Yeah, it was Kerry.
That's
Kerry
right.
versus Flair.
Of course it was. It was Kerry versus Flair, and when I guess Michael had, because the Freebirds and the Von Erichs were the Freebirds were baby faces,
right,
prior to that, and so Michael, I guess, was showing that he was a heel at heart, and he tried to help Kerry win that match, and I guess he probably punched Rick, or I forget how all of that went down, but that was a great confusion of Michael trying to help Kerry, but Kerry wouldn't accept cheating help, and then Michael stormed off in a huff, and Kerry was pleading to him. It was a cage match, and Kerry was reaching out to him, and the gate got slammed on Kerry's head, and then it was on, and there have never been baby faces like the Von Erichs, and there have never been heels like the Fabulous Freebirds, and that was probably the greatest feud of all time, and it was an incredible honor to be there because those guys, the Freebirds, what special people and special wrestling athletes those guys were, and because I go back and I look at all of this footage of our work back then, and man, the work rate is incredible. It is stiff and strong, and it holds up today. So the work was great, and the characterizations were powerful, and yeah, it was pretty thrilling to be a part of.
Well, Michael, I suggested you and Dan as Facebook friends, so as soon as this is over, I went ahead and took the initiative. So there you go.
There you
buddy.
go. Thank you.
That works. Yeah, Dan and I got a lot of talking to do here. I mean, this is, like I said, this is a gold mine for me. I mean, just to know someone that was actually there, and just to bring that before we go on to, the WCW time, we were talking about the cage match and the cage door slam, Michael Hayes, the guest enforcer. I've asked this question before of Mark Lawrence and a couple of the other guys. When that happened, did you realize at that time that it was going to be such a huge impact and it was going to create, like I said, what is one of the biggest feuds in wrestling history? Did anybody know at that point in time what was being created? Because that is a moment that everybody, and even if you're not a Texas wrestling fan, if you're just a fan of wrestling history, you know the moment where Terry Gordy slammed the cage door and started that feud.
Well, all we knew was that something was happening, but no, you have no idea the magnitude of it when you're in it. And it takes looking back at it now to even realize the magnitude of it back then, because you knew at Texas Stadium that something incredible was going on,
Right.
But and you knew when you were selling out Reunion Arena, this is kind of special, really. So we knew that it was probably going to be significant, but we didn't know how historic and long lasting that moment would live.
Well, there's one person that knew. I believe there's one person that did know, and his name was Gary Hart.
Gary Hart was a genius and one of the most special men that I have ever known in any business. I worked for the PGA Tour for many years, and I've worked in many industries, but Gary Hart was just a very intelligent man, a very compassionate man, an incredibly quick-witted guy and good-natured, and he was so good to me, and I learned so much from Gary Hart, and man, I miss him. He was one of the truly special guys that I have ever met, and without his input, it wouldn't have been as intense as it was, and it wouldn't have been as fun for me at all. So Gary Hart is one of the most people out of all of that, and I was really blessed to get to work with him, and to get to hang out with him was the important thing, and just get some of his vast wisdom about the business, but about life too. He was an incredible guy and one of the true special people in the business.
Definitely. Gary Hart, one of the greatest. Well, Michael has told me I need to take over or he'll turn this into world-class talk. There's definitely a time and a place for that,
we could go for several episodes on world-class. But...
Yeah. Well, let's talk Atlanta. You get the call from Keith, and you're going to go work for now, when you went to work in Atlanta, has Turner had already taken over, or was Jim Crockett still running things?
Turner had bought it. Of course, Jim was not really a part of it when I got there, but David was.
Right.
And and I probably should have tried to think about this. I'm not even sure who was booking at the beginning.
Was it Jim Hurd?
Jim Hurd was the president. He was the CEO or whatever. He was not the booker. So
okay, so let's.
It could have been Dusty at the time. I'm not sure.
It was either Dusty or probably Flair, one of those two, or Ole, maybe Ole, one of those three.
Right, or it was a committee, too.
Right. Yeah, they used the committee a lot. Yeah.
But that was obviously real big time then. We were using the technical people and the cameramen from TBS Sports, and those guys were the best in the business. And so when you were directing for WCW, you were driving a Rolls Royce, man. It was as good as it could get, and it was incredible to be there. It was a lot of pressure. I produced the Saturday night show, which was a 2-hour show that I had to get done every week. So we would go to center stage every other Wednesday or every other Tuesday or something, and we would shoot a couple of shows, and then I would take the footage and start editing on Wednesday and edit for it would be 32 hours over 2 days, and then or over 3 days, and then Friday night I would take the show into audio post-production and would spend 8 hours sweetening it, and I would deliver the show to Master Control at TBS about 2 or 3 in the morning on Saturday, and it would play that night, and the next week we would be going out and doing a shoot for all of the syndicated shows, so I would go out with that shoot, and after we get back from there, I'd edit the next Saturday night show. And so it was incredible high-pressure situation. You were working 60 hours a week every week. You were traveling a lot, but it was incredibly fun. You were doing what you loved to do, so you didn't mind putting in all of the time. It was so gratifying to see your show on the Superstation, and to work with the people that we worked with. I had worked with Ric Flair, obviously, in Dallas, and got to know him then. And so when I got to Atlanta, being able to work with him real closely was such a thrill. He is obviously one of the greatest who ever lived, and he was as big a personality outside the ring as in, and so much fun to work with and to party with, and it was dangerous to party with him because you couldn't keep up. But what an incredible run that was in Atlanta. We went all over the country.
So Dan, I mean, you're telling us this, and fans for so many years, Dan, WCW Saturday Night was regarded as the best wrestling show on television because unlike Superstars, WCW Saturday Night would feature big matches. I remember in 1994, Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat wrestling a Spring Stampede, and there was a no finish. There was a draw. I didn't say no finish. There was a draw. And they said, you know what, this coming Saturday night, you're going to get the rematch. And that was such a big deal. You're like, you're getting Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat, the two guys who in 1989 set the world on fire with their 3 matches, working for, Turner, going 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. And now these two guys are going to wrestle on TBS this coming Saturday. There was, WCW Saturday Night for so many years, Dusty Rhodes would say it a lot to the point of it became comical, but he was right. It was the mothership, and when WCW Saturday Night went off the air, I believe in 2000, people were just crushed because I think by that point Jimmy Hart had taken it over, and WCW, I think the horse was long gone from the cart by then.
Right.
But that show was the show for so many years. That was, when Knoxville came along.
It was the show on the UHF station. That was the Jim Crockett show on the UHF station when Ted Turner bought that station, Channel 24 or whatever it was, when it was just a UHF station in Atlanta. And that show was the only thing that was drawing any ratings then. And then when Ted had the genius idea of becoming a superstation, again, that show was what kept him on the air long enough to where he could reach critical mass and start making money. And my show was the highest rated show on TBS the entire 6 years I was there. It beat baseball, basketball, everything. It was the king, and that was probably the reason why I couldn't move out of wrestling over to TBS Sports, because those guys really hated that we outnumbered them all the time. It really stuck in their craw. So in 95, I was obsessed with golf. So in 95, I moved to PGA Tour Productions and started working for them at that point. But,
were you there? So you were there, not to cut you off, Dan, I'm sorry. You were there. No, you were there when Hogan came in, right?
Yes.
So, okay. So when Hogan came in, for so many years, people looked at WCW a certain way, even though it was the better wrestling company. If you wanted a wrestling match, you went to WCW. If you wanted cartoon characters, you watched WWF. I watched both. But when Hogan came along, there seemed to be a shift. So you're working there. You've been working there for a long time. What big of a change was it when Hogan came along? Because I've heard things, but I want to hear it from somebody who's actually there.
Well, I promised myself I was going to be a baby face on this, so but when Terry came, he was tired of being a baby face. Okay,
right.
So he wanted to heel out, but he didn't want baby faces getting over on him.
Right.
So that's when it became the All Heel Network,
Right.
And for me, that change, and when Terry came, that changed it so profoundly that I could not be committed to it anymore. Because the beauty of wrestling to me is the ebb and flow between the good, the baby face, and the evil heel rule breaker, and this is what I learned in Dallas, is the dynamics of it, how the baby face is never going to cheat, the heel is going to cheat to win, the referee sometimes doesn't see it, but the baby face will never cheat, and even to the point to where here we are we've built it up to the championship, and ultimately the baby face wins without cheating, and that is the whole point of wrestling. Is ultimately the babyface wins without cheating.
Right.
And if you don't have that, what is the point to me? You know, and so I'm going to heel out and say, yeah, that ruined it for me. And so when Hulk Hogan came to WCW, that was the end of it for me. And I left the business and was turned off to it ever since, until I heard from Jim Cornette and Gary Juster about Ring of Honor, and I started checking out Ring of Honor, and I saw The Wrestler and saw the Ring of Honor guys in that movie, and it seemed like the old days to me, and that's the only reason I got back into it, because Ring of Honor to me is the real deal again.
Sure. Right.
And that, so it's to me, it's like it was at WCW, that there is some integrity to it, and it's, you know, it's way beyond the kayfabe days, obviously, because you know, the industry is ruled by smarks now, and so all of it is seasoned with that sort of stuff, but to me, the integrity of Ring of Honor is singular in the world, except maybe for some of the Japanese work as well, which we just had a huge honor of working with New Japan Pro Wrestling at a couple of pay-per-views for Ring of Honor, and that was incredibly special. Yeah, Jushin Thunder Liger came, and I got to work with him. So Ring of Honor to me is a throwback to world-class championship wrestling as far as the field goes. And I have to say that when Terry came to Atlanta, it ruined it for me, and which was heartbreaking, because I love the business, and it just seemed like it changed, and the business war with WWE and WCW was also nasty and brutal, and I really am not a fan of New York, consequently, and I'm not a fan of their product either. The part of the WWE product that I can respect is the product that Ring of Honor sent them.
Yeah.
So the only guys I think that are worth a damn right now are guys that came out of Ring of Honor. So I'm a little biased, I'll have to say.
No, you're not, because for the last few years, that's what it's been. I mean, look at the talent. Look at Cesaro. Look at Seth Rollins. Look at Daniel Bryan before he left the company. CM Punk. There's a lot of guys that came from ROH that became WWE superstars, or still. I mean, two of the biggest stars in the last 5 years, CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, were ROH guys for years. I mean, I take a lot of pride in Daniel Bryan, because he started here. Well, he started in Texas. He went down to San Antonio, and he went to Shawn Michaels, and he wanted to be somebody. And he went through the school, and he went through working down here. And in Texas wrestling, it's not what it used to be. It's a lot harder to draw down here. But it's possible, and a lot of good still comes out of Texas and still can. But Daniel Bryan, for him to do what he did, Ring of Honor doesn't get the credit, and I'm glad that the WWE, and I understand where you're coming from, I get it, but WWE has kind of given them the rub on DVDs, and there was a Daniel Bryan feature on the network a few weeks ago after he won the title, and they showed Ring of Honor clips and stuff, and it was really cool. And we were going to talk about ROH for Cornette. We'll do it next week. But no, I mean, you're not biased. You're telling it like it is. There's a lot of real good, solid Cassius Ohno, Chris Hero. You know, he's no longer in WWE, but I mean, he was a Ring of Honor guy. And he's back there. He does the occasional shot. I mean, Ring of Honor has progressed. You had Eddie Guerrero, the first Ring of Honor show. You had Eddie Guerrero. You had the American Dragon. You had, then Samoa Joe came out of there. He went to TNA. You've had so many. You got you know, you got Austin Aries. You just got, oh my God, the list goes on and on and on and on of people. I work with ACH worked a few shows for me, Dan, before he went up to Ring of Honor. I mean, we got Johnny Gargano.
He is an awesome guy. He is one of my favorites now at Ring of Honor. Of course, being a Austin homeboy, I'm always going to love what he does. But he's very special, and man, he is pumped now. He's in incredible shape, and what he does is very very special. So, ACH is a great Texas wrestler.
Yes, he is, and I mean he's always had a great attitude. So I mean you're not biased. That's just the way it is now. That's where that's
another thing about Ring of Honor. You talk about ACH having a great attitude. Well, that whole locker room up there is the greatest bunch of guys. They are committed to what they do. They respect each other. They respect the business, and it's just such a joy to work with those guys, because one of the problems at WCW, there was a huge amount of money there, and consequently guys got the big head like they deserved all that money, you know, and so they became as hard to work with as professional golfers are. So not all professional golfers are hard to work with, I'm kidding. But that was an issue in Atlanta, was there was so much money that people had the big head, and some of the best matches were shoots in the locker room, you know. But
so were you there when Paul Orndorff and Vader went at it?
I was not in the room, but I was there. Oh yeah, I heard about it, and but yeah, there were some intense personalities at World Championship Wrestling for sure.
Wow.
But and that was quite the whole, and it was an issue there as Ring of Honor is experiencing. It was an issue there where you have a broadcast company who takes over a promotion, and then they impose their management on it, and then they start to impose creative ideas on it.
And they don't know like a damn thing.
and it's, you know, and I love Jim Herd. He was a great guy, but some of his ideas were whack, and he wasn't the worst of the executives that they had in that spot, you know.
Well, funny you bring up Jim Herd, Dan.
Huh?
It's funny you bring up Jim Herd, because Michael was just about to. Michael, you wanted to ask Dan about Jim Herd, so this sounds like a perfect segue. What were you going to ask about Jim Herd?
We're kind of curious because, Dan, a little backstory here. I mean, since the show started, Dave and I will start talking, and inevitably we make a Jim Herd joke, and we do this. But, I mean, we know about the ding-dongs. We know he had the whole thing with the bells on the suits and all that, but I have heard so many stories about Jim Herd, and you mentioned some of the whack ideas he had. If you can kind of give us a few minutes, if you don't mind, what were some of the ideas that Jim Herd had that, thank God, maybe didn't make television? Because Jim Herd is just a character from what I've understood.
And I want to bring that up because I think it's been overblown, frankly, the impact that Jim had. And it wasn't just him. He wasn't the only guy that, the corporate guy that was, he was getting people's input that he was having to give too. And he was a good guy. He was a great corporate executive. I guess he had been with Pizza Hut or whatever. And he was a nice guy, but he didn't know anything about the business. And he knew about business, but not the business, you know. But he was a great guy, and I enjoyed working with him, and I feel like him being the butt of jokes is kind of unfair to him, that he was just put there where he was, and it was an unfortunate thing. But the guys that came after him were not extremely better either, you know, and even to the point of I question almost everything that Eric Bischoff did too. So, you know, it's poor Jim. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong skill set, you know, but was a great guy. And so I feel like he gets a little bit of a bad rep for that, but that's a part of it when you have a broadcast company that takes over a wrestling promotion, because wrestling is a unique business. The dynamics of it are very unique. You need people running it that know the business and know the dynamics of it and how to what it takes to draw a crowd to an event, and all of the things that have to go into that, and you will be able to get into that at great length with Jim regarding our experience with Sinclair Broadcasting and Ring of Honor, and they're doing a pretty good job, but it's a tough fit for a wrestling company to be bought by an entertainment company, or in the case of Ring of Honor, it's more of a television broadcast ownership group, and so you have to come to a good relationship intercorporately to allow the wrestling company to do what it needs to do to be successful. But I feel like Ring of Honor now is in an incredibly good place, that they have put their TV show in a good place. It's getting great ratings, and now they are moving their pay-per-view thrust from the internet onto real television. So on June 22nd in Nashville, we are going to have an incredible pay-per-view that I believe is going to be the beginning of a new era for Ring of Honor, where they start ascending to their rightful place of at least number 2, and where we could once again start challenging WWE for dominance. I mean, obviously Vince is the 2-ton gorilla in the room, and he has incredible worldwide momentum. I really love the content that we are putting out at Ring of Honor, and I love the boys. Their work rate is astronomical. The things that they do in the ring are the best in the world, and so I'm thrilled to be there right now. It feels like old times, and I'm excited to be a part of the business again, and I thank Ring of Honor for that opportunity, and for all of the people there, for Kerry Silkin for keeping the thing going, and for Gary Juster and Jim Cornette putting together the deal that has enabled it to get funded and exposed better, and for the guys there. Mark Davis is the production director there, who has created a way for Ring of Honor to produce an economical show that Sinclair Broadcast can get behind, and there are a couple of great editors that are working there, Mark Brown and Chris Resnick, and their creative spark is very important. They're both fans, and so there's a team at Ring of Honor that reminds me of the team that we had back in Dallas at World Class Championship Wrestling, and it has that feel again. So I would urge everybody who can to watch Ring of Honor on your TV, or to go to ROHWrestling.com, and it's streamed there, and check it out, because I think it for Texas wrestling fans especially, who grew up with World Class Championship Wrestling, I think Ring of Honor is a style of wrestling that is very reminiscent of that, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it.
I agree. I agree 100%. Michael, I know you wanted to ask Dan about Clash of the Champions.
I did want to ask about that, but I do have another question here. He was talking about the pay-per-views and all that. they're moving from internet pay-per-view, you said, to cable. Is this going to be through, like, in demand and those type of...
I am not sure what the total delivery system is, but yes, on Dish, on Direct, on your whatever your Comcast cable, Time Warner, all of those should have in the pay-per-view area the way to get this show. I believe it is best in the world, isn't it? I should do my homework.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you got to see it because it's going to be incredible. The world title will be on the line. Adam Cole is an incredible world champion. I don't know if he can be beat, but Michael Elgin is one of the strongest men in the world, and the work he does in the ring, it will blow your mind. So that match is going to be incredible. And then there are matches all up and down the card that are going to be fantastic. So you can't miss Ring of Honor's pay-per-view on June 22nd. It will be historic, and I think it'll blow people's minds who are not familiar with Ring of Honor that what is actually happening. So I think we're going to pick up a lot of new fans there, and we're going to solidify all of our old fans. Ring of Honor has some of the most incredible fans around the world, and thank God for them. And but I believe that once people get an opportunity to actually see a pay-per-view on real TV, it's going to blow their minds. So this is really going to be something special. Everybody needs to see it, and you're going to hear a lot about it between now and then.
I've got it pulled up, Dan, and before we let you go, I've got Best in the World pulled up on my computer. We will give everybody all the information they need. We've got it pulled up right here. So before we end this interview, we will go over it again. Michael, Clash of the Champions, what's your question?
The question about Clash of Champions, what were you involved with the Clash of Champions series when it was going, or did you just do the Saturday night program?
I also directed the Clash of Champions, which was the quarterly live shows, and Craig and I traded out on pay-per-views. Craig Leathers was an incredible director there, and I learned a huge amount from him. And he and I, we traded out both the Clash of Champions and the pay-per-views, but mostly I did the Clashes and he did the pay-per-views, I think is mainly how it worked. So,
okay.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Those live shows were really exciting.
Okay, now this is going to lead to my inevitable question. I will admit to this wholeheartedly. I am one of the biggest Shockmaster fans you're ever going to meet. So,
right.
Were you there as part of that show? And exactly behind the scenes, what happened to create that incident? I mean, obviously there was a mistake somewhere. So behind the scenes or whatever, can you fill us in? What exactly happened the night of the Shockmaster debut?
All right. That was all right. Well,
Dan, can I tell you what Dusty Rhodes has said publicly about it? Dusty Rhodes said that they rehearsed it and everything was fine, but before they went live, David Crockett had nailed some kind of board or platform right above where Fred was going to pop out, and Fred tripped over it. So that's what Dusty had said.
Yeah, well, the whole thing, I mean, he had this mask on that was hard to deal with in the first place, and it had, if I remember correctly, it had glitter on it, and the glitter was coming off, so they had to put like pantyhose and patch the eyes so the glitter wasn't getting in his eyes, and we were doing this at the last minute, obviously, and then we had done the rehearsal, and it worked really pretty well. I believe it was probably sheetrock or something, but when he busted through it made quite a quite an explosion. So, oh man, I'm trying to remember. The way it was set up. There was we had to fix it, and it was reinforced like right at the knee level or something. It was over reinforced. So when he went through it, he went through the top part just fine, but the bottom part didn't break, and so he went head first through the thing, and oh my God, that was the ultimate live debacle, and he never got over, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, yeah. And supposedly, Ole Anderson was somewhere else, and he was doing the voice.
Ole was the voice of the Shockmaster, yes.
Yeah.
Right. That which was also, oh man. I mean, we kept doing the gimmick. We did the Shockmaster gimmick with the voice and everything, but yeah, trying to coordinate the voice with the guy too was an issue. So I guess Ole was probably in the back watching the monitor and doing it. But yeah, those were one of the things where the corporate Weisenheimers had ideas that were one step too far. It's one of those typical things.
They actually talked about. Yeah, they talked about the Shockmaster incident on Steve Austin's podcast the other day. He had Eric Bischoff on, and they were talking about the Shockmaster.
Oh, good grief! Now I haven't read Eric's book yet, so I don't know what's going on with that. But Eric and I went at it, over all heels and stuff with Terry. But I respected Eric's business mind. He was a creative genius in a way, but I think the effects of his work speak for themselves. Ultimately.
Now, aside from Shockmaster here, and thank you for filling us in and all that. In your opinion, what do you think was one of the best matches or best moments of the Clash of Champions? Because I mean, there were so many, highlights in that series. Because at one point in time, that was kind of, in between. That was like one of their pay-per-views, because it was on every 3 months in between the big shows.
Well, we had incredible people. I mean, Ricky Steamboat, his work with Rick. I'll have to look back and see what was where or when, because the pay-per-views and the clashes all kind of run together. If after doing them those many years ago and all together like that, but working with people like Ricky Steamboat and just the technical expertise of guys was amazing. Of course, Leon White was incredible and a very powerful performer, and of course working with Dusty Rhodes. I mean, he's one of my favorite friends of the business ever. He and I got along incredibly well, and working with him was amazing. So the talent there, it was world class without a doubt. It was world championship, but there was amazing talent there. But yeah, I think really the stuff that I like the way that Ricky Steamboat worked was pretty spectacular, and I'd have to look back and see who wrestled when, where, but those were incredible shows. The quarterly live shows were just as big as the pay-per-views because they would set things up, of course.
One of my favorite Clash of the Champions moments is Andre the Giant. I've stated was the reason I started watching wrestling, and to see Andre on the Clash of Champions, I believe it was a 20-year anniversary by wrestling on TBS, and y'all had the Clash of Champions at the I believe it was at the center stage where you shot your Saturday night show, and Andre was there, and he was just there for a little bit. It was just a real quick shot, but Andre was there at the beginning. He was with Missy Hyatt. He was with Tony Schiavone, and they were welcoming people to the show. But it was really cool because Andre had been on crutches, and I believe that was the last television appearance of Andre before he passed away. So, I mean,
wow,
that's really cool, you know, because Andre was, as far as I'm concerned, Andre was the greatest attraction of all time. But, you know, I know times have changed, and other people probably surpassed him in buy rates, but as far as I'm concerned, he's the greatest attraction of all time. So
yeah,
I'm biased.
Absolutely, and I got to work with Andre in Dallas. I mean, he was there at the Sportatorium, and he was, what a fantastic person he was. His heart was as big as his body, you know, and but damn, a big guy. I mean, I was in and this was nothing I wanted to see, but I mean, all of him was proportional. Let's put it that way. I saw him coming out of the shower, and it was frightening. And I have size 13 feet, and I could put my foot with my cowboy boot on into his cowboy boot.
Wow.
So he was a really big guy, but what a fantastic guy and incredible to work with, you know. It was very sweet. And I'm trying to recall that clash, but
I think Ron Simmons worked. I know Steve Austin worked Ricky Steamboat. Ventura and JR were doing the commentary. It was shot at center stage, which was unusual for a clash.
Yeah, that would have been weird, yeah.
Right. But it was shot at center stage, and I even noticed that. I was a kid, and I was like, that's the same place they do WCW Saturday night.
I know.
So, but they had Thunderbolt Patterson was there. I believe Bill Watts. I believe it was during the Bill Watts era.
Right.
Hank Aaron was there.
Oh wow!
And I'll find it on YouTube and I'll send it to you, and then maybe it'll.
Yeah.
I mean, you work 60 hours a week, so
it was crazy. It was crazy, but we had that great show in Corpus Christi that time when it was. I guess it was the Horsemen against Gary Hart's bunch with Muda and Buzz Sawyer and Dragon Master. That was an amazing show. And then that was back in the time when we had the Steiner Brothers and Doom and Road Warriors. We had an incredible tag team bunch.
You know, you're right, man, and I'll say this. One thing that really bothered me is y'all, WCW, y'all made a big deal. Y'all had the Road Warriors, and you had the Steiners, you had Doom, you had Flair and Arn team up. But in 1996 on Monday Nitro, unadvertised, they brought the Steiner brothers back and put them against the Road Warriors on Monday Nitro in a 10-minute TV match. And even then I'm going, these are two of the biggest, greatest tag teams of all time, and you just threw them into a TV match with no advertising. And I was like, in 1989, this was a big deal, and now, you know, so it goes back to your point.
I know.
David,
and but I'd already
jump in here real fast.
I'd wash my hands of it by then. But
what were you going to say, Michael?
I was going to jump in here real quick. Being social media and everything else we can look through here. Clash of the Champions 20, September 2nd, 1992, was the last U.S. television appearance of Andre the Giant.
There you go.
And it says here that
what was the main event? What was the main event?
Rick Rude, Jake Roberts, Super Invader, and Big Van Vader defeated Sting, Nikita Koloff, and the Steiner Brothers in a single elimination tag match.
Good grief.
Was one of the big matches.
Yeah, that was
that
20th anniversary show. Yeah, I remember that.
And that was the one where Ron Simmons
stage.
And Ron Simmons faced Cactus Jack for defend the title. He defended against Cactus Jack that night.
Wow, what a match that must have been.
And
we had Steve during that time, and that I do remember that. Andre was there, and that's right before he went back to Belgium to his dad's funeral.
Yeah, and he passed away, sadly.
Yep.
He was actually interviewed by Gordon Soley, it says, during the thing.
That's right. He was Gordon Soley, man. What was it like to work with Gordon Soley, Dan?
Sorry.
Well, Gordon Soley, like Bill Mercer, was a prince, and he was brilliant and incredibly good-natured, and he always said the right thing at the right time. But having really smart guys like that do your announcing is very helpful. Because they are able to give it the gravitas that it deserves. But Gordon was incredibly great and was fun to work with, and it was an honor to be able to work with him. So,
I'll tell this story, and then, Michael, if you have anything else, and we'll let Dan go. We'll get ready to close here. You talk about Bill Mercer. In 2008, I'm getting ready to run a show here in Fort Worth, IHWE, and I want Bill Mercer there, and I want Bill Mercer to do the commentary. So I find Bill's phone number, and I call him. And he's incredibly nice, but Bill's real reluctant. He said, David, I haven't done wrestling in so long. I said, I understand. I said, just do this for me. And I was reluctant. I wasn't reluctant. I was persistent. I kept bugging him.
Good.
Like, well, he said, I don't want to do the commentary. And I said, okay, well, just come to the show. Let us honor you. So finally he agreed. And then after he agreed, I called Akbar. And I said, Akbar, Bill Mercer's coming to the show. I need you there too. And Akbar said, I'll be there. And then as soon as I got Akbar and Bill Mercer, I called Mark Lawrence. And I said, hey.
Wow.
We've got an opportunity to do something really special here, Mark. Can you be there? And Mark said, yes. And sure enough, all three of them were there that night. And let me tell you, Bill Mercer, he was 80-something years old, and he walked in, and those guys, I was going to put them in a separate locker room away from all the talent because I wanted them to be able to just catch up and not be bugged. They planted themselves right in the middle of the locker room with all the talent. And it was watching like three kids. They just got together, and then when they went out there, it was like Bill Mercer walked out there and said, "Welcome everyone to World Class Championship Wrestling from the beautiful Sportatorium. I'm Bill Mercer with Mark Lawrence, and we don't know this guy." And with Akbar, and it was a moment.
That's
they
awesome.
all came back and they hugged, and I just felt so good. I was like, wow, if we never get to do anything else, we got these three together for the first time in years, and then we lost Akbar in 2010.
Yeah.
I know Bill's back in North Carolina now, but, man, Bill was a class act. Even then, I mean, he didn't have to come. He didn't ask for a dime. Bill came just to be there, and I can't say enough good things about Bill Mercer. I'm a guy who's never done anything in this business. I just wanted to be in it. And I got to meet Bill Mercer, and he came to my show, and I can't say enough good things about Bill Mercer. He's a class act all the way.
Yeah, he's a very special man, and I learned a huge amount from him about the business and about being a good person, too. So God bless Bill. But I do want to say something about you, David, and I really am very impressed with everything that you are doing. And I'm thrilled that you have taken the initiative to build this organization you got going down there and to honor people. And it's just a special thing, and it's a tribute to your persistence, as you say. And I'm super proud of you, and I want to be able to get down there to one of your events very soon because what you're doing is special and it's important. And thank you so much for doing it.
Oh, my pleasure, Dan. Johnny Valentine, he took a chance on me in 1998. Because of that, I feel it's my duty to do my part. And, I know you were wanting to come down to see Charlie, and I'll get with you.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a great show. Yep.
Can make it. You'll come in and be our guest. Yeah.
What's the date on that?
Sunday, September 28th. It was going to be in October, but it's on the same day that WWE is doing a pay-per-view here in Dallas, so we moved it to September.
Probably smart.
So Sunday night, September 28th.
All right, I'll
So
put it in my calendar.
Stan Hansen, Barbara Goodish, the wife of Bruiser Brody, Charlie Haas, they're all going to be there.
Wow.
So, Yeah, it's going to be special. Michael, before we let Dan go, it's been a hell of an interview. Do you have anything else you want to say to Dan?
Just that I'll be contacting him on Facebook soon, so him and I can talk a little bit off air about World Class and all that, and I can start working on his entry for my book. So it's been a pleasure having him on here. I mean, like I said, this is a gold mine. I was learning you were with World Class was something I wasn't expecting.
Well, I know I haven't been included in any of the documentary stuff, but I feel like I had a lot to do with it. I was the guy calling the shots in the truck, so every cut you see on those old shows on the WWE Network, I made that choice, and I'm mighty proud of all of that content that we created. It's historic, and I feel like it stands the test of time. And all of the guys that I worked with back then, I'm so blessed to have gotten the opportunity. So it's made it very special, and I'm thrilled to be working with the people I'm working with now. I'm excited to be back in the business, and I feel like Ring of Honor is something that is very special, and I would invite all of the fans out there, if you're not familiar with Ring of Honor's product, go to ROHWrestling.com and check it out. I think you'll be surprised and excited to see what we are doing there. But God bless y'all. Thank you for this opportunity to get on my soapbox. And anytime you want me back, just let me know.
All right, Dan, thank you so much. Michael is going to make sure that you get the credit you deserve in the Encyclopedia WCCW. I look forward to hopefully meeting you. Hopefully you can get down for a show and be our guest. I would love to just have you there. And, yes, we will plug Ring of Honor Best in the World Sunday night, June 22nd, on all of your major cable and satellite providers. It's going to be Adam Cole and Michael Elgin for the Ring of Honor Championship. I'm looking at the poster. I see Jay Briscoe. I see Jay Lethal. I see Kevin Steen. Maria Kanellis. You can never go wrong with Maria. Matt Hardy. Ring of Honor.
And the big deal is it's the return of Chris Daniels
Christopher Daniels. Yeah.
So he and his tag partner are going to come, and it's going to be huge. So history will be made. Everybody should definitely tune in on June 22nd.
Dan, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and then jumping on here early when Jim Cornette couldn't make it on. We will definitely have you back on in the future. It has been an honor and a pleasure to speak with you, and I know I speak for Michael in saying that.
Well, God bless you. I'm looking forward to hearing Jim on here. He's a force of nature and one of my best friends of all time, and I love him a lot. And so you're going to have a hell of a show with Jim Cornette. Oh, my God.
All right, Dan, thank you so much. You have a wonderful night, sir.
All right. Talk to you all soon. God bless you.
You too. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Dan mentioned it, Michael, and before we get any further, ROHWrestling.com, June 22nd, Best in the World 2014 is going to be on all major cable and satellite pay-per-view providers. It'll be from the Tennessee State Fairgrounds in Nashville, Tennessee, 6:30 bell time locally. It's going to be at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on pay-per-view. As Dan stated, Michael Elgin, Unbreakable One, will battle Adam Cole, challenging for the Ring of Honor Championship. Christopher Daniels makes his return to Ring of Honor. And we don't need to put over Ring of Honor because anybody who's been alive and a fan of wrestling for the last 10 years knows exactly who Ring of Honor is. If you want to see who Ring of Honor is responsible for, turn it on to the WWE Network and watch the main event of WrestleMania. And that's all you need to see. So, Ring of Honor, Dan Bynum. Wow, we lucked out, Michael. We had a situation, and we luckily had another guest lined up. And, wow, Dan Bynum was, what a guest, what a history, what a cool interview.
Oh, definitely. You know, we always make the comment, live radio, you never know what's going to happen. But he mentioned World Class Championship Wrestling, and you and I were just, I'll admit it, we were both, struck with it because neither one of us knew that, He was behind it all. So, I mean, we know Mickey Grant, we know all those names, but I'm researching a book, and his name, I'm embarrassed to admit, his name has never come up in any of the research that I've gone through. So, yeah, this was an interview, man. I mean, this is a great show. It's just one of those cases you never know what's going to happen.
Well, you know, there's a saying in wrestling: sometimes sometimes the best things aren't planned. And a few days ago, we didn't even have a guest lined up for hour number 2. And I thought about Dan because I knew Dan had worked for WCW, but I didn't know, and I saw him that he was working with Ring of Honor, but I had no idea that he had the history with World Class Championship Wrestling that he did. I thought Dan would be a cool guest to come on here and talk about television with World Championship Wrestling. But so we lined him up, and then all of a sudden, you know, Cornette calls me just a few minutes before we're supposed to go on the air, and Jim Cornette, I want to say this, Jim Cornette called. He didn't just say, screw those guys. I'm Jim Cornette. I don't have to call. He called and said, David, we're going through a bad storm right now. Electricity's out. I'm sorry. And Jim wanted me to apologize to all the fans. If you listen tonight for Jim Cornette, we do apologize. We hope you were entertained by Dan Bynum, because Dan just provided all of us with the soundtrack to many of our lives as far as wrestling fans. We're going to get Dan on again, and I'm honored that he would say the things that he did about me. It's really cool when somebody who's been in the business and seen and met so many, quote, superstars to say anything about somebody like me. And just I'm humbled by it. And Dan has stated that he will try to make it down here for Old School Hustle. So, man, that's really cool. But I'm glad we were able to get him on, Michael, because I know he'll be a huge I know he'll be very huge for your project, Encyclopedia WCCW. So I'm glad he was on here.
Oh, it's definitely going to be huge. I mean, just the moments we talked about. We talked about Christmas night, the Von Erickson Freebirds. We briefly talked about the Parade of Champions, which we all know. That's where Kerry won the title. He was present for a lot of historical moments in World Class, not just as a director of a TV show. He was there for just what are pivotal moments in the history. So, I mean, that right there is just absolutely amazing to me. So, you know, and he mentioned some of the other things he did was, you know, David Von Erich is a slave for a day. When I first started watching World Class, as I've told people before, I was flipping channel. I came across a show called Legends of World Class Championship Wrestling, and I turned it on. And what did I see was the slave for a day, where Jimmy Garvin and Pressure had to go down, and they had to, you know, throw the hay bales and wash the dog and get under his tail. We all remember that. And I was a fan of Jimmy Garvin, watching him on NWA and WCW on TBS before I had really ever heard of World Class Championship Wrestling. So that segment was the first thing I ever saw on ESPN that got me to go, wait a minute, that's Jimmy Garvin. Well, who's David Von Erich? Who are these guys? I want to know more about this. So in my history of it, Dan Bynum directed a segment that hooked me on World Class Championship Wrestling. You know, I mean, he fought a hitter right here, and that was where I started. So that right there was amazing for me. That's why I said, man, you need to take over, or I'm just going to want to talk World Class with him for the next 2 hours.
Well, and that's fine, and there's definitely a time and a place for that. We'll definitely get Dan on in the future, and we'll talk a little more. It was our first time interviewing Dan, so, you know, when information starts coming out, then, you know, the way we do interviews is we'll hear something, and then we'll kind of guide our questions by what we hear. So, a lot of information, but we'll get Dan back on here really, really soon. Because of you know, everything we had planned, I think we're going to go ahead and end the show early tonight. We just had a great interview with Dan Bynum, and we're going to work on next week. I know Jim Cornette said he would be very interested in coming on next week. We're going to try to make that happen. And also next week, we are gearing up for the Cauliflower Alley Club, Michael. We have some guests coming on. with the CAC. Am I correct?
Yes, I've got confirmation. We have Morgan Dollar. Carl will be on again. He's been a guest 2 times now. Jason Sanderson will be joining us. Eric Schmiel, who is the editor of the newsletter, has agreed to come on for a few minutes. And also Billy Blade with Vendetta Pro Wrestling, who is the one who's booking and promoting the 2-night wrestling cards that are happening at the Cauliflower Alley. So he'll be coming on to talk about just what matches are set up and who's going to be appearing at that. And I know some of the names right now, just from what I've heard from previous interviews. Matt Hardy is going to be at the Cauliflower Alley Club at the Casino Royale shows. Bad Influence, Kazarian and Daniels are going to be there. So he's going to be coming on as well. So we definitely have a booked show as far as the CAC goes. And now, we have Jim Cornette.
Yes, the IHWE heavyweight champion Matt Riviera and his tag team partner Greg Anthony will also be at that show. They are the current NWA Lone Star tag team champions. They will also be at that event for the CAC as well. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, next week we will work on Jim Cornette. We will have an announcement about that probably tomorrow on IHWEnow.com, which is our new website. I want to thank Joe Kent for all the man-hours he put into it. It launched last week was great. I want to touch on a couple things before we hang up here. Sunday night, June 8th, Johnny Gargano, the former Dragon Gate USH champion, will battle Thomas Shire, who is a pupil of Dory Funk Jr. at the IHW Experience. Also, I was at Will Rogers Memorial Coliseum yesterday for an interview with Matt Avery, IHW broadcaster. That'll be up on our YouTube channel here very soon. That was really cool. We actually sat in the same locker room as the wrestlers used to dress in. That was extremely awesome. Yes, definitely. Also, I was happy to announce yesterday that on Sunday, July 20th, IHW will present another World Class Championship Wrestling tribute when we bring in Eric Embry to Fort Worth for the first time in 2 decades. Eric Embry, Black Bart, James Beard, and Chico Torres will all be together Sunday, July 20th. More details are coming about that, and this will be a meet and greet for fans to actually come up and meet these legends. First time Eric Embry has been here in 2 decades. That is big. Also, Barbara Goodish, who will be a guest on this show next month. Barbara will be our guest at Old School Hustle in September at our live event in Fort Worth, Texas. We got so much going on, and you can find all the information at IHWEnow.com. And before I hand it to Michael to plug what he needs to plug, IHWEnow.com is your source for everything IHWE, including this podcast. Michael will be representing us in 2 weeks at the Cauliflower Alley Club in Las Vegas. We'll be doing double duty that week with 2 back-to-back nights, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But I know Michael has some things he wants to talk about, so I'm going to hand it off to Michael, and I'm going to, Michael, I'm going to wish everybody a good night, and go ahead and do your thing and close us.
Sounds good. I want to add IHWEnow.com. I will be contributing on the blog site of that page, actually. I've got something coming up about this show and some other upcoming things, so I'm contributing to the site as well. Thank you, David, for that opportunity. But you mentioned Barbara Goodish coming up. That show will be June 18th. That will be actually Frank Goodish, or Bruiser Brody, as a lot of people would know him as. That was his birthday. So we will be celebrating Bruiser Brody's birthday with Barbara that night. So she'll be on June 18th. And another moment coming up here, unfortunately not a great moment, Friday, May 23rd, will be the 15th anniversary of the passing of, in my opinion, one of the greatest technical wrestlers ever. That would be Owen Hart. We all know what happened. We're not going to go into that. But the 15 years on May 23rd, and this weekend on HBU Radio on WrestlingWorld247.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Pacific time. Bruce Hart will be hosting the special episode of HBU Radio as an Owen Hart tribute. Bruce Hart, obviously one of Owen Hart's brothers. They are hosting a tribute that night. I will be a guest on that show Saturday night, once again, 8 to 10 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Central, I believe. I don't know all my time zones, but I will be a guest on that show, as well as Heartbeat Radio on ProWrestlingPowerhouse.com, which runs 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday night. They will also be doing a Owen Hart tribute show. I will be a guest on that to come on and talk, representing IHWE Radio. And also on the Sunday night show, they will have Mick Foley, Jeff Jarrett. I'm drawing a blank. Mick Foley and Jeff Jarrett are the two main ones I know that are going to be on that night to talk about Owen. So I will be a guest on both of those shows. I believe they both go through Blog Talk Radio. We will post more details on the website as they become available. So if you want to tune in and listen to that, I'm sure those are going to be great shows. So, like I said, the passing 15 years. I remember where I was at that night, so it's going to be a big one. I'm just going to go on for a few minutes, share a story or two. My son is actually named after Owen Hart, so I was asked to come on and kind of talk about that for a minute. So Bruce Hart has been a guest on our show in the past. He's going to be on again this summer to talk with us again, so I am honored to go on to his show Saturday night and on Sunday night to talk about Owen. I'm looking forward to that. So anyways, great show tonight. As always, you can find me on Twitter at EncycloWCCW. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Encyclopedia World Class. You can now also find me on IHWE Texas Professional Wrestling on Facebook. I've been made an administrator of that page. You can also read some of my writing on IHWEnow.com. I will be contributing to the blog site of that, as well as just announced the other day, I am now a digital media producer with IHWE. I will be taking on more of an active role here with IHWE Radio this summer. As you all have heard, July 30th will be David's last night, as he will be going on to work with IHWE TV, which will be debuting the same night. He will still be on as a director, but more of the producing of this show will become more on my end. So I'm looking forward to that. We got some great things coming up. We will discuss that more as we get closer to that time. And for David and for myself, thank you for joining us on IHWE Radio, and we will see you next week with our CAC episode, as well as an interview with the man who was supposed to be here tonight. Hopefully all was going well with the thunderstorm warnings up there in Louisville, but next week we will be joined by James E. Cornett. So for David and myself, thank you for listening, and we will be back next week.